So my next video for this morning is a discussion on, or rather just me explaining my paraphilias. So for this, I just need to look at something quickly. But I do know two major paraphilias that I definitely have on some level. For me, it's really still minor things, and I don't think it'll ever become like massive things, although I have gotten in trouble for one of my paraphilias already, which I didn't even know that it was really already defined as a paraphilia, as I really didn't even know what a paraphilia was before I got to, well, even during medical school. I didn't really start learning about the paraphilias until I left medical school and internship and decided to just sit and learn on my own and learn all the things that I wanted to learn. So I'm just going to go through a list rather than just doing this off the top of my head, to make sure that I don't miss any paraphilias that I know that I have. And I'll put some links to these sites in the description for this video. So just starting from the top, this is from a International Society for Sexual Medicine website, which you can find by Googling. So voyeurism, I definitely enjoy voyeurism. I don't do it to the point of trying to disturb the people having sex, but I definitely enjoy it, especially when the people who are having sex are deciding to be exhibitionists in some manner or aren't bothered by it. Yeah, I don't really like to impose. Transvesticism, I don't have a high degree of that, but I have tried that, and I do want to try that once, at least publicly, just to see what it feels like. But my interest in women's clothes has more to do with the fact that when I notice women in really comfortable clothes, I wonder, how do I get the men's version of that? Because I really do want, lightweight fitted clothes as opposed to bulky, heavy jeans or heavy shoes that are just not the best for really anybody's body usually, or for my body. Exhibitionism. So I'm definitely an exhibitionist, and that to the fullest extent. I like doing my things in front of anybody and all people who want to partake and see and enjoy and like that, and even possibly to learn from things that I do that they've never seen before, as well as vice versa. Fetishism. My fetishes really have to do with feet. I like feet and I like toes. I've always liked toes. I used to say when I was younger, if a woman knows how to take care of her toes, then she knows how to take care of her body. And, I haven't been proven wrong on that in my personal experience. So toes are something that are very important to me, and that is one fetish that I have. Obviously, I like pussy. I like vagina, clitoris, vulva. I even like anus and butts. I like all forms of the body. I like arms and hands. Fingers are very important to me. Eventually soft, delicate hands that have a soft, delicate touch. But I guess that could be a fetish too, although often they're referring to non-living objects, which maybe cotton. I do like cotton. Frotteurism. So frotteurism is a fetish that I got in trouble for. And I didn't really think of it as I'm not a fetish, rather, is a frotteurism is a paraphilia that I got in trouble for. I just recently got convicted for. So now I'm actually a sex offender in the United States of America. It's in a minor category, but I still have to check in with the police once a year to make sure that they have my address. But I frottered probably about 6 women or what, 4 or 5 women, 4 to 6, about 6 women. There's probably about 6 to 8 women actually. The interesting thing was this, is that the outcomes were, were varied. And I wasn't doing it really just to get sexually aroused from touching a woman's genitals or body parts or private parts, because that's the type of frotter that I really did. I was doing it more to engage in sexual activity with those women, which might be slightly different to a pure frotterist, depending on how it was defined and derived. But it still falls under the category of frotterism. So, typically what I would do is just gently pat an attractive woman on her butt. One butt cheek. Usually the closest one to me might be the right or the left, depending on her position and where I am. And yeah, to even complete strangers. One time I did this in Los Angeles, in this it's like a city walk area or something. I was there for about a weekend or something for some conferences. We all went out. It was actually with the Health Policy Summer Program when I was there, which is at Harvard Med School. But they flew us out to Los Angeles, and we went out to this club kind of area, the city walk area, and there was this really attractive Asian girl who was walking by me. I just lightly patted her on the side of her butt. She stopped and started talking to me, and she didn't get angry, or she wasn't upset, which I wasn't really expecting. I mean, I don't know. I guess that is part of the expectation sometimes, but like I said, I've had varied results, and I've always gone out to clubs even since high school and touched women and strangers, sometimes on the arm, sometimes on the hand, but sometimes in more sexual positions, and been very careful. But this was one that was more outwardly noticeable, that I definitely patted her on the butt, and she started talking, and the both of us decided to go a little bit of ways from the group, and that ended up in kissing. So we had a little bit of sexual activity from that. So that's one of the more positive outcomes. Another positive outcome was one girl in a club up here in Boston, but it's a little different in a club where a lot of people go to clubs to find sex partners. But I started kind of going up behind her on her butt with my penis, with my clothes on obviously, and we started kind of dancing. But I was rubbing my cock against her bum. And I think she noticed that I got erect, and we started dry humping until my point of ejaculation, at which point I went to the bathroom to clean up. So that was another positive outcome. Those are the two most positive outcomes. Then I had, about 4 others, which didn't turn out so great. And I guess I was really, in some ways, I think, maybe it might have been a little bit out of desperation. I hadn't had sex in a long time. I wanted to have sex, and I was looking for particular types of women, too. And so I kind of took a chance. The first one, I didn't really have a plan or an idea, and the other ones, I didn't really have much of a plan either. It was all instinct and right in the moment. It was more impulsive, which kind of falls more under mania than anything else. But I've always been that way, especially even as an athlete. Where on the field, as an athlete or a soccer player, we have to make decisions immediately. And if it works, it's amazing. And if it doesn't, then there'll be another opportunity. So with that mindset, I kind of, had a similar mindset towards women. And so the first one was on the red line in Cambridge, where I lunged out towards a woman, ended up touching her on her thigh. It was on her left thigh, kind of like her left inner thigh, and I got tackled by some guy. He didn't really try to hurt me, thankfully. He just kind of was grabbing me and pulling me out of the way, and then they detained me till the police came, and I ended up in Worcester Recovery Center, and actually that time I didn't end up in Worcester. That time I ended up out on my own recognizance. And then, I didn't really expect that at all. I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't really having much of a plan, and I wasn't really thinking about it that much. But I eventually found myself in another situation where I just walked up beside a girl at a stoplight, waiting to cross the road. And I looked over. She was very attractive. Normally, I would have, said something polite, maybe offered to give her my number or email address or write my info down for her, or maybe ask for her info. But I kind of, right in the moment, wondered what would happen if I just, patted her on the butt or touched her. So I gave her a little gentle, very gentle pat on her right buttock. And she turned and said, "If you touch me again, I'm calling the police." And I wanted to know, well, is she, that serious that she's really going to call the police on me? So I then decided, well, let me touch her in the least sexual manner that I could ever think of. So I used my little left pinky and touched the bone of her right elbow. And then I just stood. And then the light changed. I crossed the road and kept walking. And she called the police. The police got me on Mass Ave as I was walking towards Boston. And that's when I ended up at Worcester Recovery Center going through a trial of indecent assault and battery. So frotteurism in the United States is charged as indecent assault and battery, which sounds way worse than frotteurism. But because I wasn't trying to batter the girl. When you get the strict definition of an assault, touching anybody who without their permission is considered an assault. I didn't realize that. I've been touched many times without giving any permission, and I didn't really ever think of it as a big deal. Although, yes, I do understand sometimes it doesn't feel great, and I definitely am not trying to psychologically torture those women or any women in general. But in part, you can't really find women who appreciate it that way from strangers even without trying. So I definitely tried. And I had a little bit of success more in the beginning, and then it kind of fell apart later. It's hard to pick the women and find the women who really want to be, sexually engaged with a stranger, either fucked or touched or whatever. But I know they're out there, but it's probably a smaller minority. Or at least, there are women who do fantasize about it. But I do know there are women who do that. But I was kind of taking it to a little bit more of an extreme level. So those were those two where I actually got charges. And then while I was at Worcester, I was still in that frame of mind. So I decided, to try to see if this girl would have sex with me in the hospital. I've actually had sex in a psychiatric hospital already while I was in Florida, at Florida Medical Center, with this Italian girl. Not God. We just sat beside each other, started talking. Pretty much I told her I'm horny, wrote it down on a little sheet of paper, handed it to her, and she was willing to satisfy my sexual indulgence and arousal. And we did it right there. We got caught by the staff, but, I did the whole thing to the point of ejaculation right inside her. So that's not frotteurism, but that's another interesting story. So anyway, with the frotteurism, after that, so at Worcester, that time I was thinking, maybe I could find a girl in the hospital who would have sex with me. I did eventually find some girls who had some sexual activity with me in the hospital up here in Worcester, in Massachusetts. But this one, I came from behind and used my little index finger, my small finger, my index finger, so it's not my smallest finger, but that one, and then, put right up behind under her jeans and rubbed right against her little pussy. One time, just one little touch. Kind of like a touch of sex or a touch of love for some people. And she punched me. So that wasn't the best outcome either. I ended up with another charge. This one got dismissed. So, but, So yeah, I didn't really want to do that again. I didn't really want to be punched by a girl even. And, so frotteurism is not really going to be my main sexual tool, but it still was enjoyable. And then the last one. So the other two in Cambridge, I actually got not guilty by reason of insanity. But apparently there was one in Boston, which I really didn't recall. And yes, in some ways it sounds like it could have been me. But there were a couple of things in the case that made me think it wasn't me. One, the woman had stated to the police that the guy was clean shaven, whereas I had a beard. And two, She said the guy grabbed her butt, whereas I don't usually grab the women's butts. I'm not trying to harm them, much or at all. I'm just trying to have like a sexual pass at them, non-verbally. And so I just patted. If I did anything, I would have just patted her on the butt, like one pat, and see what she thinks and where it goes. Anyway, I was found guilty for that one because I pled not guilty as opposed to pleading not guilty by reason of insanity and trying to get a not guilty that way. And that's what ended up with my conviction. So froderism, not the easiest paraphilia. Kind of interesting and fun. If you're in a place that's a little less strict on law, it might be worth it. But, if you get caught, ended up in some rotted prison, having a hard life, then, it might not be worth it. Just depends on what you're really going for. So those are really my main paraphilias. Oh, and there is one other, or maybe three other paraphilias. Well, even 4 others on this list. So I do like somnophilia. Especially when I have a long-term relationship with a girl. I had a girlfriend for like 7 years, and she'd be sleeping beside me. I'd wake up aroused and, start having sex with her while she's sleeping, and she'd start waking up from her slumber and joined in with that sex. I guess some people might consider that to be rape, but I don't know. I guess she might not have. If she sees this video, maybe she will, but she's definitely not charged me with rape. But that was in the context of a relationship. For some people, that's not even permissible. It has to be explicit consent all the time. For me, I never really grew up that way, but I am understanding that a little bit more now. I also like coprophilia on some level, but I'm not sure how much because I haven't explored it too much. But I think that is something that I want to get into. And part of the reason why I like it is because I do know that the feces eventually becomes mud. So in some way it should be good for the body. Like rubbing feces on skin should have some benefits. I'm just not exactly sure what and if that's who's really thought of that. Because usually these ideas somebody else has already thought of. This stuff is not usually original. Just me coming to a similar conclusion as some predecessor on these things. I also like urophilia on some level. I actually have participated in that once where this was at Hedonism in Jamaica. I was in a threesome and this woman, she was trying to squirt and I was eating her out. And she was trying to squirt while I was eating her out. She ended up urinating into my mouth, but she thought it was squirting, but it was definitely urine because I know what urine tastes like since I have tasted my own urine. There is a history of doctors, like when it comes to diabetes. In the old days, the medical doctors used to taste the urine of patients, and if it tasted sweet, they would start to diagnose them with diabetes. And then there's also another thing. I think it's in the U.S. military at some point, because of survival skills, when they thought urine was healthy enough to drink, or you could get some nutrition from it, I think they used to make the military men and women, drink their urine at least once to know what it felt like. I've heard that story. The medical one, I'm pretty sure is definitely true, because I even heard that at Harvard. Second one, about the U.S. military, I'm not completely sure, but I have heard that more than once. So I think that's probably true too. And then zoophilia. I do like zoophilia. Not that I'm really trying to have sex with other animals other than humans, but I have enjoyed I have enjoyed watching it and learning about it. If I was a woman, I think I would really do some of that. Like I've seen women with canines, specifically like German shepherds, or putting peanut butter on their clitoris and labia and letting their pets lick it off. That stuff is arousing to me. It makes a lot of sense. And could even participate in domestication of animals. I'm not joking. So anyway, those are my paraphilias. Sorry. If you have any questions, do let me know. Do view my videos, like, subscribe, comment, and share. And you can call me Adrian, Dane Kenny, or even Dr. Kenny.